To get started in tech sales, you don't need a lot, or in fact, in some cases, any technical expertise.
So when I was researching this, I saw these enormous salaries and I was like, whoa.
If you're the type of person that needs to be given direction constantly, chances are sales not for you. You can teach someone how to sell a product. What you can't teach someone is how to be a self-starter.
I'm guessing you guys are the resellers.
We don't really love that term.
Why?
It just makes us sound, less of what we would like to think ourselves as, which is more so a strategic and trusted advisor and not just the middleman selling you something. Typically, people will say that salespeople are coin operated. I like to say that we're financially motivated.
Really picky with your words.
I'm a salesperson.
Yeah. Should have been a lawyer.
The job is not hard, but it is a grind. You could think that you're the best of the best, but sales is always up and down. You're never up, up, up. If you want to do well, focus on pie. And pie is...
Welcome, everybody. Today with me on the My Career Shop podcast, we have Kashif, an account executive in technology sales working for one of the largest IT solutions and services provider in North America. He's going to be talking to us about the field of technology sales. Good to have you. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Umair. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Appreciate it. So I'm really interested in this field because I know the barriers of entry are lower and the monetary opportunities are really high.
They can be, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard from so many different people that this is where it's at. So if you got sales experience, you really need to tune in for the rest of this episode. So let's start off really, really broad.
Sure.
Right? What is the tech sales field about? Because like technology is this like huge overarching word. Like, I don't think you sell chips. Maybe you do. Let me know.
Yeah. So technology sales you're right. It is a very broad brush that we're stroking the canvas with, for example, right? Like technology is everywhere, is all around us. So what part of technology are you selling? There's a few ways to break it down. And the way that I think makes a lot of sense and will hopefully make sense to the audience today is really around, breaking it up into the vendor piece, which is, say, a manufacturer or vendor like Logitech or HP or Microsoft or Amazon Web Services or Google, right? So these are what we would typically call vendors, right? Now, they have other names as well, just depending on how you're, in the context you're speaking to them, speaking about them. But, typically we'll call them vendors. And then there are partners, which are, like myself. So I'm a commercial account executive for, as you mentioned, one of the largest IT solutions providers and service providers in North America. I'm based out of Toronto, Ontario. And so I support customers and clients that are local to the market that I service. And so, we are a partner. And so we are a partner of the vendor, so a Microsoft partner or a AWS or Google partner. And we work with our customers who are looking to, purchase technology, but also, make the right decisions around their technology investments. And so as a partner, we're typically vendor agnostic. So we don't go in and, let's say position a specific product just because that's the only thing we can sell. We can, in fact, sell quite a different, array of products and services. And so, that gives us an opportunity to really address the customer's business outcomes and really connect that with the right technology. So that's kind of, the two different aspects I would look at is like there's the vendor side and there's the partner side. And obviously there is the customer side, which, I interact with on a day-to-day basis. And, typically that's how it's broken up. Now there's, med tech sales and things like that as well. I'm specifically focused on, let's say, hardware, software, and cloud compute technologies as it relates to what technologies organizations or enterprises would use to have their business run optimally. I don't know if that answers your question. I think it's
a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack for sure.
So, when I was thinking of the question, I was thinking, I sell hardware or I sell software. That was very comprehensive. So what I took was you got partners and you got vendors and customers, and a tech sale, somebody that works in tech sales can fit into each one of these.
Yeah, more so vendor and partner. Okay. So, we typically find that in the vendor community, right, there are so many different tech sales roles. So, there's the sales development representative, there's the business development representative, SDR, BDR. these terms can sometimes be interchangeable, and every organization is different in how they treat the role. But typically, that's an inside sales type of role, meaning you're typically behind a desk, calling and prospecting into customer accounts that you are trying to position your product into. Those types of roles exist. There's account manager roles, which can be inside or outside. So outside being that you're face-to-face with your clients, you're visiting them on site, you're on the road. But those account manager roles are more so what we would typically call farming roles, where you have existing relationships with certain customers and you're working on them to continue to nurture those relationships and make sure that you're retaining your customers and they continue to invest and buy with you. But then, also diversifying them a bit further into different parts of your portfolio and what you can offer from a product perspective. And then there are account executives where, again, in my position as an account executive, not only do I have a subset of accounts that I am managing, and accounts and customers, that term is interchangeable. Just know that when I say accounts, I'm talking about clients or customers. So when you're managing, as an account executive, when you're managing accounts, you also are responsible to retain and diversify the portfolio and their spend in your product portfolio and your service portfolio. But also beyond that, you are trying to prospect and bring on new customers. And so account acquisition or customer acquisition is a key part of what we do as account executives.
Okay, wow. You answered like 20 questions for me, but that's awesome.
This might be your shortest episode ever.
And folks, we're done. But so you're an account executive, right? And actually, no, let's just stick to the first question still.
Sure.
So the tech sales field is about essentially selling hardware, software, cloud computing, any essentially technological solutions to somebody that is interested.
Yeah.
Right? And you guys control the entire pipeline. Within that, there's many different roles that essentially address whatever is necessary, right? In a nutshell, did I capture that?
Yeah, and I think what will help clarify that a bit further is that, again, from a vendor perspective, Microsoft is only going to sell Microsoft, right? Or HP or Dell, they're only going to position their product. And so, they work with partners like me or us, right? We're recording live from our office in Toronto, but they'll work with a partner to reach out to the customers. What's important is that we're not selling to the average consumer. It's B2B sales. And so we are selling to other organizations, whether it's small, medium enterprise or small, medium business, commercial, which is typically, segmented in terms of the employee size. So, up to say 2,000. But then beyond that, there's enterprise as well, which is, 2,000 and above and up to 20,000 employees or more, right? So there are different customer segments that we're able to address from a partner perspective or even from a vendor perspective. And so there are, to your question, right? Like there are many different roles that exist within tech sales. So as I mentioned, SDR, BDR roles, account manager roles, and account executive roles. They're all customer facing. They all have different key motions where BDR, SDR is more so heavily focused on prospecting, right? Account managers are typically focused on farming and nurturing those relationships and retaining accounts. And account executives are responsible for the gamut, right?
Okay, so a partner I work with contracts a lot, right? And tech contracts specifically.
Okay.
So I'm guessing you guys are the resellers.
Correct. Yeah. Another
Right.
way to describe us is a value-added reseller or a reseller.
Yeah, I see that all the time.
Yeah.
So-
We don't really love that term.
Why?
It just makes us sound, less of what we would like to think ourselves as, which is more so a strategic and trusted advisor and not just the middleman selling you something.
So, now I understand, but for why we have why we have partners.
Thank you.
Of course, I'm listening. But can you explain why wouldn't Microsoft just simply expand on their tech sales department themselves? So why do they actually get a partner?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. And it kind of explains what we call the channel a bit further. So as you can imagine, a large technology company like a Microsoft, they do have, their own sales staff, of course. And in some cases, they can sell, directly to customers or accounts. The reason why they want to leverage what we call partners or VARs or resellers is because typically they're spending a lot more of their funds and a lot more of their money on R&D and development of additional products and services that their customers can use. And they want to leverage the channel, which has a far larger sales force to address the market, right? So, as an example, the partner that I work for in Ontario, in Toronto alone, in fact, we have 24 field sellers. So what that means is we have incredible penetration from a field sales perspective in our local markets. So we address, Toronto, the Greater Toronto area, as well as Southwestern Ontario, which is pretty significant, right? So 24 sellers that are meeting with clients on a day-to-day basis on the road and, really having strategic transformational conversations with their customers to drive business outcomes. So, to answer your question in short, they want to leverage our sales force. And as they should, right? Because that just means deeper penetration for them in the market.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. That's the whole concept of outsourcing. I'm an outsourcing attorney, right? Companies want to focus on their product and all elements that's not their bread and butter. They kind of want to delegate. And so this is where tech sales comes in, and this is your bread and butter. We do this better.
Yeah.
Right? And you're more focused on it, right? So you have the tools and everything at your disposition to facilitate their end goal, which is more penetration.
Yeah, and typically, just to add to that, like a partner like myself has deeper customer relationships than a vendor would, because again, the vendor is selling a singular product, right? Versus a partner is able to address multiple areas of the business, the customer's business, through different technologies. So, again, because we take an agnostic approach, we're not necessarily biased, and because we can do so much, we're able to address so many different parts or lines of business. And so over time, we develop better relationships than some of our vendor counterparts. And not to say that they can't or they don't have strong relationships. It's just that typically in the partner community, we see longer sales tenure. And so as a result, we just have naturally deeper customer relationships.
Makes sense. Now it's really like, now I get it. Now when I work on that contract, because when I was drafting contracts, I'm like, why do we always have this, right? Because whenever you have an added reseller, whenever you have a partner, there's more legal complications for us, right? Yep. So then sometimes you have to negotiate a contract with just them, and you have to have a tri-party agreement sometimes, et cetera, et cetera. It's just more work. So now that you put it that way, it makes sense why, like any tech company would want this, right? Any tech vendor would want this.
Sure, yeah. Now you're catching on.
Yeah. Okay. How many years of experience do you have as an account executive? And I'm assuming account executive is one of the higher roles. So like, how long does it typically take to get to you?
Yeah, so I can give you more of a detailed view into kind of my career journey. So, I started with this organization, this partner in January 2016. So I started as an inside sales account manager, which is one of the roles that we were talking about earlier, which can be viewed as, and shouldn't be viewed as, but can be viewed as more of a junior role, a beginning role, right? It's where you build some of the foundational skills and knowledge around how to address a technology sales conversation with a client. And that role was actually really interesting. And I really enjoyed that role. And I was in that role for 2 years. Specifically, I was working in tandem with an outside sales representative, and we were addressing the Houston, Texas market. So I was based in Toronto, working from the Toronto office, calling into Houston, Texas. And we had local account executive presence there. So I did that role for about 2 years, and it was great. Like I said, it's foundational learning. You learn a lot about, how to understand the technology conversation, from everything from the data center to the network to client endpoints, which are laptops, desktops. And then, beyond that as well, cloud computing, right? Like, how does that fit into the customer's, organization? Why are they using that? And you begin to start building some of those skills. I've always had a knack for leadership, or at least I think I have a knack for leadership. And so after 2 years of doing the inside sales role, I moved into an inside sales leader role where I managed a team. And in fact, the same team that I was once working on, I was promoted to manage. And I managed that team for 2.5 years. In fact, a little bit through the pandemic as well in 2020. And that's where I really sharpened some of my leadership skills, learning how to, number one, get the most out of my employees or the reps that were reporting into me, but also really developing my leadership style and what that means and how that shows up and really getting a closer look into how I can impact others' lives in a meaningful way. And that's the most fulfilling part of leadership for me, at least, is watching someone develop under your guidance or supervision, call it, but I like guidance better. But, really having someone develop and achieve their career aspirations as well. And then in August 2020, I moved into the commercial account executive role or account executive role. And that's when, I've always wanted to be an account executive. There's a lot of prestige, at least in my opinion, that comes with being an account executive because you're having some of the more strategic conversations with your customers around some of the more transformational business outcomes that they're trying to achieve by leveraging technology. And so you're at the table with CIOs, which is a chief information officer, or CISOs, chief information security officer, or CTOs, chief technology officers. You're in the C-suite and you're having discussions about the business and the goals that they're trying to achieve, and what you get to be, really in the front seat or at the table, helping them understand what technologies they should and could select to drive those outcomes, which is really interesting. And I've always wanted to be customer facing, so I loved leadership. And in fact, we'll get to this, but the experience that I've had as an account executive has been the most fun for sure. It's the most rewarding as well because you get to see a direct kind of impact as to your output, right? When your output is so significant and you start seeing some of that come back to you is pretty great. I've been an account executive, you can say, for almost 4 years. I'm coming up on, say, 4 years in August. This is being recorded in July. I'm not sure when you're going to release it, but either way, it's all good.
2 weeks.
Great. So I've been doing the account executive role for a little while, but I've been in technology sales for 8.5 years.
Wow. How'd you even get into tech sales? Unless I was part of my career shop, I wouldn't even know of this field.
Yeah. So it's a great question, right? Because I think a lot of times if you say like you're in technology sales, there's a technical component to it, or at least people believe that there is a significant technical component to it. That's not necessarily the case. Although, hey, if you have a technical background, then I'm sure it'll help your case. But, to kind of illustrate the journey a bit, I was in retail for 8.5 years prior to joining this partner that I work at now. And so in retail, I was selling cell phones. And I've always been a salesperson. So like that's just another thing that we have to kind of, I think is an asterisk on my journey is I've always had a knack for sales. Back when Napster was a thing, I used to sell burnt CDs in middle school and high school. There was a time where I was selling dog tags and chains and things like jewelry, but we don't have to get into that. But it was definitely a fun thing. I've always had a knack for sales. But when I was in retail sales, I had just graduated from the University of Toronto, Mississauga campus. And, I was chatting with my older brother, who is actually a key reason as to why I am where I am today. He works for a vendor in technology sales. And he encouraged me to look at this partner and said, hey, you should think about, going from B2C, which is, kind of business to consumer, to B2B sales. There's an opportunity for career development and, there's a different career path here that you could, really kind of expand into. And so I took a look, and in December 2015, I really gave it a good look. And that's when I decided to make the transition from being in retail to a more of a corporate setting. And that's how I got started. It was really interesting because I thought that I would need more of a technical background, but I had a decent amount of sales experience. I mean, 8.5 years of directly selling to consumers. And I think I understood the sales process in general, right? B2C and B2B is very different, but you have some type of understanding of what a sales process looks like. Yeah. Also how to manage client expectations, right? And there's an element of customer service. That's very important, right? And so, they took a chance on me for sure, but I started in inside sales. And that, like I said, that was that foundational role for me where I learned a lot about, the business, how we approach customer conversations, the technology.
And you said that role was account manager, right?
Yeah, inside sales account manager, yeah.
Okay, so that's a cool story into it. I mean, tech sales, I've also been very sales oriented, so maybe this would have been a good field. And I've been very tech oriented, so now I'm in tech contracts, so interesting. Now, you mentioned a whole bunch of things there that I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
The first thing, You mentioned that you didn't have any tech experience, right?
Right.
Do you find people that now you're an account executive, so you're watching over people? Do you find that people that are entering this field have tech experience? Is it recommended? Does it influence your salary based on how much tech experience you have when you start off? What would you say is the norm that you see now?
So I would say that technology sales typically has a lower barrier of entry, but it all depends on what type of role you're applying for and what role you're seeking, right?
So you said that starting off, I thought the starting role was tech sales rep, but you said that you started off as inside sales account manager. Are they like synonyms?
They're not necessarily. Tech sales rep is not really a term that we come across. It's more so sales development representative or business development representative. Again, the key motions there are a little bit more focused on prospecting and account acquisition. And typically, BDR or SDR is, cold calling onto a number of customers and trying to land a meeting with a prospective client that their account executive will attend. So there's a handoff that happens there. That's typically more so on the vendor side than the partner side. But yeah, the inside sales account manager role is kind of that entry level area. And I'll clarify that although I didn't have technology experience as it relates to the technology that I'm selling now, I did have experience around understanding from limited, but with my cell phone sales experience, I had an understanding of networks and things like that. Not deep knowledge, but I had an understanding of some technology and just through my natural curiosity of certain things, right? I will say that, to get started in tech sales, you don't need a lot, or in fact, in some cases, any technical expertise or knowledge. More often than not, organizations that are hiring for inside sales, BDR, SDR type of roles, they're looking for someone who has certain characteristics. And those characteristics are typically tenacity, grit, persistence, right? Like you need to be someone that is not afraid to hear the word no. Some cases you'll make calls where you're going to hear some harsher words because not everyone loves to receive a cold call. However, it's, at least in my experience and when I was a manager, what I would typically hire for is more so characteristics and traits versus skill and experience. Because my view on it is that you can teach someone how to sell a product, right? The sales process can be taught. What you can't teach someone is how to be a self-starter. That is something that is almost innate and is something that you absolutely need to have if you want to be successful in sales, no matter the level of sales. Because I think any good sales professional will tell you, no matter what, you could think that you're the best of the best, but sales is always up and down. You're never up, right? And because it's up and down and you have to manage whether it's seasonality or cyclical sales cycles or it's economic conditions that you're working through, you have to be someone that is self-motivated and is a self-starter. And you have to be really grounded in like why you are doing this, because it's not necessarily a role where you're specializing in, you're not a doctor, right? So you're not specializing in medicine where exactly, there's no shortage of patients, right? And if you have the expertise, you can address them. But in sales, it's a little bit different because although you may not necessarily specialize, you have to be a customer expert. You have to know your customers and know their business really well. And you have to be able to manage through tough times where there's, there might not be heavy buying periods, right? And so you have to kind of stay motivated as to how am I going to get up and achieve my quota or my target, or how I'm going to have a year where I'm going to achieve President's Club, et cetera, right? So you have to really be self-motivated. And so you don't need, go back to your question, you don't need deep technical experience or expertise to get started in tech sales. You need some type of sales experience, and honestly, you need to have the tenacity and persistence to really be successful. And I think you also need to be sociable. You need to be personable. People need to be able to have a conversation with you. you should be able to carry a conversation. Those are really important as well. But yeah, you don't need a lot of technical expertise.
Okay. So one of the questions I always ask is like, what steps do you have to take in order to become a tech sales, to enter this field essentially? So to get into the SDR and BDR roles, essentially you would say somebody that's hiring, you're more concerned about the characteristics rather than, you would say they should have sales experience. Is that what you see? Do you see people succeed in this field that have no sales experience but still have some of the characteristics?
Yeah, definitely. There are, I would say there's probably a number of people that I've come across personally that have no direct sales experience, but they've demonstrated that they have through other career paths, or if they're coming out of university or college, any post-secondary school, or not, right? Through other areas of their life, they've demonstrated that they have tenacity and persistence, and that's something that you have to really kind of flush out and through the interview process, et cetera. But yeah, it's not, again, it's hire more for the characteristics than the skill for the beginner roles, right? And so I just, that's the point of clarification, is I'm talking specifically about the beginner roles and getting started in tech sales. As an account executive, definitely we're looking for someone who's got some sales experience, especially field sales experience, because an account executive is responsible for some more of the, like I mentioned, strategic conversations and really guiding and driving those conversations and really being able to see them come to fruition in terms of, sure, a sale, and I don't really like to call it that, but like getting a deal done, right? And moving a project forward.
Really picky with your words.
I'm a salesperson.
Yeah. Should have been a lawyer. Makes sense. I can see at the account executive level, it's very important to be able to articulate your point very well. Communication skills need to be top notch. You're sitting in the C-suite. So, I mean, you really need to understand a lot, right? Okay. So when you're starting off, you mentioned you don't really need to know tech, right?
Right.
So you're obviously going to learn it as you go.
Right.
So what are some of the different areas of tech that you'd be taught? Like, I'm sure software is one, because I'm a little confused in terms of like what element you're selling, right? So,
sure.
I mean, I don't think one tech sales agent or rep or manager or executive will be selling hardware, software, cloud, and like anything and everything tech related. Is that how it works?
As an account executive at a partner, I can sell anything and everything.
Okay.
My focus, and it's important to understand, like there are certain swim lanes, right? Like you want to be able to focus on certain areas, and areas that are either high growth or high demand, or areas that are going to, directly address the customer concern. I think that's one really important thing, is that not every customer is going to be buying the same type of technology. There are general trends in technology where, for example, in the last year, we've seen a huge AI emergence, right? AI has been around. AI is not necessarily new, but in the last year, we've been talking a lot more about generative AI and how that can impact our customers and the businesses that we work with. So that maybe is a technology trend that we're spending more time talking to our customers about, because they're trying to figure out how they're going to make use of that technology, right? So I have certain focuses. As an account executive, my focus is specifically around key software and software asset management. So what that means is, Microsoft licensing, we can call it, right? Like that is a critical part. That's next to an ERP. Single business, any business is going to be spending a lot of their IT budget. Aside from, say, like an ERP, right? The Microsoft spend in any organization is typically their second most, valuable and also most expensive investment. And so that's all their licensing that directly impacts their end users, their productivity tools like Office, et cetera, email, right? Outlook and OneDrive, SharePoint. But then there's also, the back end, right? Everything that touches the data center. So their server licensing, their SQL licensing, et cetera. So there are many different things that as a partner we can sell and that we touch, but my focus is more so around software asset management. So helping our customers make sense of the different software titles that they own and helping them either reduce certain software spend where they might have overlap, optimize that software spend to ensure that they are getting the most value, and then helping them also innovate beyond that. And so what that really means is like, how do you turn that investment that you've made into, day 2 or 2.0, where you're taking it from the initial use case that you're solving for, and how do you maximize that value so you're getting the most out of the investment that you've made, right? So software asset management is a key focus of mine. And then at the same time, helping my customers understand the technology landscape from a cloud perspective is really important. There are 3 main hyperscalers or cloud providers in the world right now. I'm sure there are more as well, and I don't want to say that some of the other clouds are not important, but what we're seeing typically is Microsoft Azure, Amazon's AWS, or Google GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform. There's a cloud focus, and so helping our customers understand what their cloud journey is and why that's important to them. There's an on-premise data center, then there's also public cloud, and really understanding what if a hybrid makes sense, or if multi-cloud, multi-public cloud makes sense, or multi-cloud between on-prem and public cloud makes sense, which is again the hybrid model. And then, my focus in terms of what I am actively positioning with my customers on a day-to-day basis is professional services and managed services. So professional services is when we get, let's just call it an engineer to support a customer accomplish X, right? Like they have a project that they're working on, they need expertise and help. They leverage our engineering bench to get that work done. That is what we would call like a professional services project. And so that is a key focus of mine, to find those projects and, be able to sell those projects and close those projects. And then there's managed services, which is, to your point, outsourcing, where you're selling a service that is essentially, a number of folks doing the tasks that you would hire 3 or 4 people to do. You're outsourcing it to, say, a company that has, a larger engineering bench. To give you an example, right? One of the most common, we call it chore work, that, an IT system admin might be doing on a day-to-day basis is patching, right? Or a data center admin would be doing something like that, is patching endpoints or servers to make sure that they have the latest software updates so they're less vulnerable to security breaches, right? So one of the largest managed services, and one of the managed services that we offer with a partner that I'm working with, is managed data center, right? Or managed workplace, where we can help our customers manage their endpoints and servers and patch those for them so they don't have to do it. So we take away some of the chore work so they can focus on core work, right? And so they pay us on, say, a monthly basis, and it's as a service, right? So that's another area of my focus as well.
I did not know that's how broad your role is.
Yeah.
That's like a lot.
It's a lot to know for sure. But you know what? What I will say is that as an account executive, you're not selling it all on your own, right? You typically have either a solutions architect join you, or you have a systems engineer, or someone that is customer facing, that is technical, that can help you either flush out, the opportunity when you find the opportunity. And then also whether they're drafting a statement of work or if they're building a solution. Well, there's technical people that we rely on. I commonly let my clients know that I'm not the smart one, right? If I was, then I don't know, we would be in the wrong room for sure. But, I definitely rely on my architects and engineers to be able to put together solutions for our customers that deliver on the goal that they're looking to accomplish. I commonly refer to myself as a professional dot connector, right? I connect the dots between my customer, their business outcome, the technology, and then I have the entire team to rely on to build a solution to help them achieve that.
Wow, that was cool. This is a lot more than just tech sales. That's
tech sales is...
That's a very poor name for this field, to be honest with you, because to me, it sounds like, sure, in the beginning, the BDRs and SDRs, they're involved in cold calling, just creating relationships and so forth. But as you progress in the field, you are pretty much, like, companies are outsourcing their tech thought process to you, right? They're telling you this is what we need, and you are the one that's privy to all the information regarding what's in the market and how to maximize everything that fits their business want or need, right? That's a huge role.
And it's a role where you have to develop a lot of customer trust, and that doesn't come easy. And so that's why relationships are so important. And it's only when you get the relationship and develop that relationship over time, and you earn that trust through doing small things right. I have a colleague that's based in Houston, Texas. He's a fantastic gentleman, and what we share as a understanding of how we earn business is do the small things right, so you have a seat at the table when the big things come. So it's really important, right? And I think the customer relationship and earning trust is vital. You can't be a strategic, trusted advisor to anyone if you don't have their trust, right? And like I said, it takes a very long time to develop that. And to your point, yes, we are the ones that are helping them achieve their vision, right? And so that's why I say it's so important for you to be talking to the CIO, CISO, CTO, in some cases CFO, CEO, right? You can touch many different parts of the C-suite. And then obviously you have to work with other champions within your accounts as well, right? So there's director, manager level folks that you're working with on a day-to-day basis as well. Yeah.
I mean, the reason why I say it's such a bad name is because, so I've worked in tech stuff myself, and it is not easy knowing how to configure all the solutions, right? It's complicated terrain. I did not know that that's what tech sales was about. Right, I was under the impression, hey, you sell some software contract and hardware, but that's not what this is.
Well, there's definitely components to that. Yeah,
that's just one tiny component of a really large picture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I was researching this, I saw these enormous salaries and financial outputs. And I was like, whoa, now it makes sense why people in this field make so much money, because it's a complicated job. It's a very, the information that you seem to be privy to is very unique, because I work in contracts. So I have an understanding of software licensing and why people use on-prem and SaaS and stuff like that. But not many people do. When you start talking to people, even in companies, they're like, what are you talking about? And so you really have to dumb it down. But wow, this is a lot broader than I thought. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I think you answered a lot of questions. The question that I was actually asking you was, as an account executive, you know everything, right? When a BDR or SDR gets into the field, how do you typically start them off? If you want to, you've also been in leadership, right? So, you went from cell phone sales and a little bit of tech sales. You know a lot now. You're capable of selling professional services, managed services, tech solutions, strategizing. How did you go from that level of knowledge to what you currently know today?
It's just time. It's just a matter of time and the exposure that I had. I think that's really important, right? So as I mentioned, the inside sales role is foundational, or was foundational for me. And I did a lot of learning there. But a lot of learning happens to some degree kind of on the job as well, right? So as you start to get into the room with customers, and again, it's a team selling environment and a team selling role where I have to rely on my architects and engineers. I'm never the technical person, and I make that very clear up front, right? I am the person that understands the customer's business intimately. I know who the right people are, who the key stakeholders are. I know what's happening from a business perspective, if they're on a growth path, where they're hiring, why they're hiring, if they are not, and why that is, what they're looking to do over the next 5 years, what their vision is. Those are the things that I have a deep and intimate understanding of. So I become a customer expert, but I let my tech experts carry the conversation as it relates to the technical requirements and what technology is required to help them achieve the goal. So that's, I think, a really important piece to know. And over my years of experience, I've come to become, I've come to learn more about key technologies, right? So I can speak kind of in more depth about Microsoft or AWS or Google Cloud. I can speak to the on-premise data center, right, and understand the network and the different layers in the network. I can talk a little bit about applications and why application performance management is so important. I can talk a little bit about why it's so important to invest in the right cybersecurity tools, right? So it's all a matter of experience and time and the conversations that I've had. One thing that's really important is understanding that experience, because it comes with time, this, you do require some patience to some degree to like be patient with yourself and set, manage the right expectations, right? So you have to set expectations and manage your own expectations about how much you're going to learn and when and how quickly, right? So I think that's really important as well. So to answer your question in short, experience and time. It comes with the territory.
So in the beginning, you're going to be cold calling and you're going to be selling products, but then you're also going to be going to these meetings with other account executives, solution architects, and you'll just naturally pick up information on the fly.
You will, and you have to be open to learning, right? And so
the self-starter part.
Yeah, and so like we typically will say, when I say we, it's just kind of the leadership part of me and the other leaders that I work with, but what's critical in tech sales, or, it could be any sales role really. It could be beyond tech sales, but you want someone who has the right attitude and can demonstrate aptitude, right? So aptitude to learn and attitude is everything, right? Like how you show up on a day-to-day basis. If you're an optimistic person, if you're someone that has, high levels of energy, and someone who is naturally looking to perform well, right? So aptitude and attitude are very, very important in sales as well.
Fair enough. Okay, so you will pick up information on the fly. Do solution architects fall under tech sales, or are they they have their own career path?
Yeah, so I mean,
or is it there's some people that start off as SDRs and BDRs and then they're like, I want to branch into that?
Oh, certainly. There are definitely a lot of people that start in tech through sales and then develop more of a knack for the technical and will either seek certifications or further education or learning and development paths to move to a more technical role. Oh, yeah, certainly. That happens a lot. And in fact, there are solutions engineers or systems engineers or solutions architects that say, I've got so much technical expertise, I could be dangerous in the field. And so they go and be sales reps as well. So that happens, no doubt. I think it's more so common that we see folks develop a knack for wanting to have more technical, deep expertise in a certain field and wanting to have more technical conversations and move towards getting certified and doing some further education and moving into more of a technical role than the opposite. But certainly we see that either way, right? To answer your question about are solutions architects and technical architects and engineers a part of the tech sales community, they are a part of the tech sales community because, again, account executives and sales folks who are directly measured on a sales quota and achieving, a specific sales target, we rely on them. So they are a part of the community for sure, absolutely. But depending on the makeup of the partner that you work for, the vendor that you work for, or wherever you end up, they might be segmented differently. So they might roll into different departments, and in some cases, solutions architects will report to a director or VP of solutions and alliances, or solutions and services, et cetera, right? Or they might roll into sales. It's all really dependent upon the organization that you're working for.
So I think they're a different field then.
They are definitely a different field.
Are they? When I was searching job titles, I saw SDR, sales development representative, sales engineer, account executive, sales development manager, sales manager, director of sales, and those were most of them. So
yeah.
I'm guessing, is sales engineer also something that I'm mistaken about and it falls outside the scope of tech sales?
No, a sales engineer would probably fall within tech sales, because they are the engineer that is also directly responsible for a quota, right? And what we say typically in sales, carrying a bag, where they have a quota to achieve as well. So they're directly measured on that.
Oh, okay.
In most cases.
Are they engineers?
They are engineers.
So they went to school, like they got their bachelor's in engineering, and then do you know of what field they go into?
I wouldn't say that they are hard for me to say for sure that they are definitely engineers. I would assume that they are engineers, and likely what we see more often, or at least what I've seen more often, is mechanical engineers moving into or computer engineers, software engineers.
That's interesting. So let's talk about these different job titles.
Sure.
SDR, you already explained. These are the guys that these are the people that enter this role, and they're involved in cold calling and starting that relationship
Yeah.
and the handoff that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What does a sales engineer do?
So sales engineers are typically, like I said, technical resources, right, that are customer facing and that would join a sales representative, like an account executive, on a sales call, and also are responsible for a quota. So and sales engineers don't exist in every vendor or partner, right? So at the partner that I work for, there is no sales engineer. We have solutions architects, and they are technical. They may be compensated on the deal that they help or assist with closing, but we don't classify them as sales engineers.
So would you say once a sales rep has, let's say, gotten a lead, are sales engineers and solutions architect the people that fill in that tech gap?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. So
And that's what
why,
I mean by team selling.
So, okay. That makes sense. Because the whole time I was wondering, like, you can pick up this information, but I mean, this is nuanced stuff, right? So I'm guessing that's why they're also incentivized on that, because then certain people would work very well together, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So sales engineer does that. Account executive, you guys are involved in the strategy aspect, and somewhat you lead as well, right?
Absolutely. You, as an account executive, you lead the account strategy, right? So understanding, again,
Account being the customer.
the account being the customer's business, what's important to them, what they're trying to achieve, who the different contacts are, the key stakeholders. That's very important. And then, trying to understand what, from your product or portfolio, your service portfolio, what you think you could position that would help them achieve their goals.
Okay. And so going from sales development rep to sales development manager, are they just somebody that is like a leader and watches a bunch of SDRs?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's a sales manager?
I think sales development manager and sales manager, they're interchangeable terms,
Okay.
just depending on the type of team that you're managing, right? So as I mentioned, I was an inside sales account manager, and then I became an inside sales manager where I was managing a team of account managers. Right.
Okay.
I think that I could have been a sales development manager in the sense as well if I was directly managing a team of SDRs. Right.
And what's a director of sales?
A director of sales is someone that typically oversees a larger territory. So as an account executive, I've managed up to 16 accounts or customers. And then a director of sales is someone likely I would report into. That term can sometimes be interchangeable with a district sales manager or a regional sales manager. But typically, director of sales is an elevated role where they're earning a little bit more and they're responsible for a little bit more as well, including and sometimes, it's not necessarily limited to, but, including managing the sales P&L for that territory. So, for example, Ontario, the province of Ontario in general reports into a single sales director. Right, but there are multiple leaders that oversee smaller subsets of teams and account executives that report into that.
Okay,
the
so
sales
then there's the
director.
sales guys, then there's the managers that watch over them, and the account executives that are involved in strategy for those customer accounts that they've all connected below them. And then there's the director of sales who pretty much has like really broad oversight around what's going on.
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Moving on to some of the more interesting stuff. How do you earn money in this field? Because most sales-oriented fields are just commission. So if you become like a realtor, for instance, a real estate agent, it's just all commission. But tech sales is unique. I saw that you have a salary and something and commission, and there's different breakdowns. So can you take me through what you see in industry?
Yeah, so typically what's common in the industry, let's talk about it from an account executive perspective. What's common is, there's this concept of OTE, right? So if you're looking at a job description and, you're perhaps looking at an offer and you're considering a career as an account executive, you'll typically see something that says OTE or on target earnings. And it's really important to understand what that is, right? So on target means that you've achieved 100% of your quota, right?
Of your quota?
Of the quota, of your respective quota that you'll be assigned, right? So when you start. And typically what that means is that there is a fixed portion of your OTE, so on target earnings, which is your salary. So let's say, for the sake of the example, let's say your OTE, your on target earnings is $100,000, right? Your salary might be $70,000. Your variable or your target incentive or your commissions could be the other $30,000. So what that really means is that if you achieve 100% of your quota, in a full calendar year, right, you're going to achieve 100,000. You will earn $100,000 in that year, right? Granted, you achieve your quota. Now, typically, commissions are uncapped, so you could also do very well and go well beyond that 100% of your quota and achieve beyond that 30%, that $30,000 variable rate, right? But there's also times where you might not achieve, 100% of your quota, and so you'll fall below that. Typically, you'll earn less, right? So that's where I think the incentive is, especially when you have uncapped commissions. You can really earn very well as an account executive or even in any other role. But there are certain nuances. Every organization has their different, kickers or compensation plans, and so they can be all be very, very different. But typically what we see is that there is an OTE, which is a single number, but that's made up of a fixed salary and the variable target incentive.
Okay. I'm very interested in this OTE thing.
Yeah.
Industry-wide, is it a zero-sum type of payout in the sense that you don't hit your target, you get zero? Or do you get proportionate, right? Like if you hit 50% of it, you get half of it?
So that's really dependent upon the organization and the actual commission standard or structure. What's industry standard? There's just so many partners and vendors. It's hard to say. But typically what we see is what I have seen and what I've experienced is that, you don't get paid. Well, let me break this down a bit further, right? So if you're going to earn your salary, you get that either way, right? You're getting that every, 2 weeks or on the 15th and the 30th type of thing, whatever it is, right? However it's set up. But then you've got your variable commission portion as well, right? Now, what you could technically do is say like, hey, my variable commission is $30,000. So if I achieve 100% of my target, I'm going to earn that $30,000. If you go well beyond that, then you'll earn obviously more than that $30,000. Now, where it becomes interesting is that typically when you go over your quota, there's a concept of acceleration or accelerators where you earn at a higher rate, a higher percentage, right? Or a higher rate of commission once you go beyond 100%. Now, every company is different. So they might say, hey, if you want to earn in accelerators, you need to actually get beyond 125% or 150% or whatever it is. That's all set by the individual company. But what I've experienced and what I've seen is typically once you go beyond 100% of your quota, then you can start earning in accelerators where it's, as an example, if you sell, something that's $100 and your commission rate is 20 cents on the dollar, right? I mean, you're going to earn $20, right? On that $100 sale. And so if you accelerate or you're in accelerators and you've earned, you've achieved more than 100% of your quota, that acceleration rate maybe is 25%, 30%, whatever it is. Now you're getting paid that on every dollar you achieve beyond the 100%, right? And so typically that's how we see things. But there's a lot of opportunity to earn in the tech sales in that field, right? Whether it's a vendor or partner. And they're again, every organization is very different in terms of how they compensate their people. But typically there is an element of like, hey, you sell more, you're going to earn more, right?
That's good. I mean, it would be really bad incentive if they didn't give you more for hitting your OTE. After hitting your OTE. So it seems like there's salary, and then the industry is if you don't hit your OTE target, you're not going to get any bonus, but you do make commission along the way on each sale.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So you make commission on each sale, and if you hit a particular target, you also get another bonus, right?
You may accelerate, yeah.
Right? No, like isn't there an OTE bonus? Like a number that you hit, or is that just the accumulation of all commission?
That's the accumulation of all commission.
Oh, okay.
That $30,000 that we were talking about.
You're only gonna get that in
Right.
the event you actually hit that quota.
Correct. That's not a bonus associated with you.
Oh, so you're not getting it along the way then.
Well, you're getting you're let's say you're chipping away at that $30,000.
But you have to hit it
But you gotta
in
hit
order to actually get all of it. That's an industry standard. There might be companies that do it slightly differently. And then lastly, in the event you actually exceed that OTE, then you'll be compensated a greater commission percentage for like on a per sale basis or something.
Sure.
And does that get paid out on a yearly, like?
Again, everyone's different, you might see that on a monthly basis. Like typically you're measured on a performance level, like from a performance management perspective, you're measured on that on a monthly or quarterly basis. And typically you get paid your commissions on a monthly basis.
So is the OTE, I'm guessing it is different for an SDR and then account manager and then account executive. So it gets harder and harder, I'm guessing. And I'm guessing you also get more and more commission and your salary also increases. Let's talk a little bit about that. You're an SDR. Like how am I starting off?
Yeah, so typically I think the SDR range, and again, from my inside sales experience as well, like I can give you a little bit about that. Like you're going to see an OTE range of like $50,000 to $80,000, which is, I would say $80,000 being on the really high end for an SDR, BDR type of role. But typically you're going to start around $50,000 a year. OTE.
And what's the salary for these guys roughly?
Salary, consider the split or the pay mix around 70-30%. So 70% of that 50 is salary. 30% of that is your commissionable portion, right? So you could say that of the $50,000, it's 70% would be closer to, I think is 32,000.
Okay.
Right, and then the remainder of it is something that you can.
And what was the amount? You'd say like 50. SDRs would start with.
50? SDRs would start with around 50,000. Yeah.
And 70% is
70% of the 50,000.
Yeah.
Is your salary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 30% is your commissionable portion. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. People gotta eat.
Yeah, you gotta eat.
Now, again, it's you're starting, right, and there's. In the commission structure, there can be so many different kickers and accelerators and bonuses that you can earn as you unlock, different, milestones, right? So if you bring on a prospect, you might get a new logo bonus, right, of whatever, right? It's all determined by the company that you work for. But yes, to your point, as an SDR, BDR, this is kind of entry level. Where we typically see the larger earnings or the higher earnings is in the account executive role. And as an account executive, you could possibly earn, there are account executives that I know that are making, $500,000 or more per annum, right? So that's pretty significant.
Oh yeah,
it is. And it's typically along the same lines, right? You typically see a pay mix of in the account executive role, you typically see a pay mix of 60-40 or 70-30, sometimes 80-20. Where, if you're managing large enterprise customers where sales cycles take, months, if not years, to close large deals, complex deals. But yes, they can range, right? And so as an account executive, I would say on average, average account executive, you could be earning between $150,000 to $250,000 if you're, depending on the company and if you're having a pretty good year or more.
Wow. And that's just up to account executive. It gets higher and higher because I did see some huge numbers. Like when you get to the top, it gets into 7 digits, right? So, I mean, and so you're talking about an account executive. That's kind of crazy. Just from my career conversations with so many people. So let's take this in. You start in as an SDR. You earn about $50,000. Breakdown is about 70-30. Right? Because the sale is so quick, you can have that 70-30. But as you get into higher roles, the sales cycle is going to slow down. Some of these contracts are active for like 18 months. More percentage starts slipping towards the salary and slightly less goes towards commission. Now, the crazy part is that you said you became an account executive within 4 years, right?
Right.
So you mentioned the bracket of like 200 grand to like, people making 500 grand.
Sure.
In other fields, that's like ludicrous. for instance, if you become a big law lawyer, which is supposed to be the highest standard of law, it's not until actually even you need a minimum of 8 to 9 years of experience before you touch $500,000.
Right.
Right. And by the way, those are tough 9 years. And they find that in the field of law, most people quit well before 9 years. So that's interesting. I was right. This is a very lucrative field if you can actually make it. So is there a lot of turnover?
Yeah. So before I answer the turnover question, it's important to understand that you have to be very, very good at what you do.
Of course.
To earn, say $500,000, repeatedly, right? There are, again, in sales, there are ebbs and flows, and so ups and downs, and so you may earn. It's possible that you're just trying to paint a more realistic picture. Is that it's possible that you can earn less one year, right? But what I love about sales, and where I think everyone gets energized about sales, is that I think it's really the only career path that gives you an opportunity to give yourself a raise every year because of the uncapped commissions. Now, not every organization has uncapped commissions, but if you find an organization that does, I mean, that's one that really believes in their people to go and be successful. And I view that as an investment for sure in your people to say, hey, uncapped commissions, go out there and do what you got to do and bring in business, and you're going to be rewarded for it, right?
They're sharing their profits essentially.
Exactly, right? I mean, you are bringing them business, and as such, you should be rewarded, right? So I love that about sales, and I think that's the most attractive piece. Is typically you find that sales folks, I don't like using this term because it's been applied to salespeople over and over again, but typically people will say that salespeople are coin operated. I like to say that we're financially motivated.
I haven't heard either of those, so that's fine. But I will ask one more question about salary. So
Sure.
we spoke a little bit about SDRs being about 50 with a 70-30 split on average. We didn't talk about an account manager, so one level up. What do we see there?
Yeah, so account managers, you could earn between, I would say the range is probably between $60,000 to about $100,000.
Yeah.
So account executives are obviously more, as I mentioned. But yeah, if you're a really good account manager, you could earn up to $100,000. Now, again, that's what I've seen in my experience, limited to the partner that I work with, but also at the same time, I would say that's probably common, but of course there are outliers, right? So there are folks that are probably earning more as account managers, but I would say that's the typical range.
Okay. That's awesome because when you think about it, within a pretty short period of time, you can crack the 100 mark, right?
Yes.
It's good to know that there are well-paying fields. There should be more noise about this.
There are a lot of people in tech sales. It's definitely a career path that I think has picked up a lot more in the last, I would say, 5 years. Again, that's based on my experience and what I've seen directly. But more and more people are becoming interested in learning how they can be tech sales professionals because from a career perspective, there's an opportunity, as I mentioned before, there's an opportunity for you to learn about technology. And then should you decide that, hey, I want to be more of a deep expert, you can, take whatever you've learned so far and pursue, certification or, continuing education to, enhance your skill set and learn more to become, more of a technical individual, right?
Do you find companies support that?
Absolutely. I mean, there are definitely a lot of organizations that I've come across and that I have friends that work for and work with that support career development. The partner that I work with believes wholeheartedly in growing people and growing our people first. That's really important. In fact, that's been one of the reasons why, from a tenure perspective, that's why I've stayed with this company for so long, is because they truly do believe in career development and helping you plan out your career. I have folks that I work with that have been here for 20 years or more, right? And the company is only 35 years old. So that says a lot.
Aren't you also doing something independently as well?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning into my sales coaching skill set and I am also providing coaching on sales process as well as really what it takes to be a top-notch sales rep, whether that's at an account executive level or account manager level, doesn't matter, and regardless of industry as well, as understanding buying patterns, buying habits, buying signals, and sales process, and really developing a strong sales skill set is something that I'm doing in piece, in parcel, with other organizations that are looking to develop their sales talent. So something that I've started recently, and really just trying to enhance and widen my reach as it relates to helping other people be better salespeople. That's all.
Any handles we can find you at?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Sales Coaching 101.
How did you manage to get that? Nobody thought that would be
That's
a good
luck.
name.
Yeah, it's just all luck.
Oh man, you are lucky.
Yeah.
Sales Coaching 101. Check it out. Back to salary.
Yeah,
There's something in tech sales called the President's Club.
yeah.
What is that, and how do you get there?
So I've been fortunate enough to be a 2-time back-to-back President's Club winner.
Let's go.
As an account executive. Very, very cool. It's the highest honor for any sales rep. When you earn President's Club, that is typically means that you're a part of a very exclusive club of top performers. And so again, every organization does their President's Club, or what we like to call P Club, very, very differently. But in my case specifically, both years as an account executive, so I never won President's Club as an account manager or as a leader, but as an account executive, I won back to back twice, which is fantastic. I had 2 really good years. It just meant that I significantly overachieved on my quota for those respective years. And we had, typically what we see is that it's this elite exclusive club. The president of the company typically joins. You'll have your VP of sales or whoever's leading the sales team, and maybe a few other folks. Definitely HR is going to be there. But you fly to a different destination, and it's probably a full week of just fun activities and experiences, and you're doing it with the best of the best. And so you really are soaking in each other's expertise and experience, and it's an opportunity to really celebrate all the hard work that you put in the year previous or the year prior, and it is one of the most rewarding feelings ever. Yeah.
Who's doing all the work when you guys are on vacation?
Everyone else that needs to hit their quota, I guess, right?
That's funny. So you definitely want to hit the President's Club. You've been a 2-time beneficiary. Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you obviously have the characteristics to be a successful tech sales professional. And so you mentioned earlier some of these characteristics where you need to be a self-starter, you need to possess grit, you need to have tenacity, perseverance, and the aptitude to learn. Anything else?
I think one of the most important things is you have to understand and be grounded in your why, right? Why are you going to wake up every day and as an SDR pick up the phone and make 100 dials and get yelled at 75% of the time for making a cold call? Right? Why are you going to get up in the morning and drive to a customer meeting and then drive to the office and then drive to another customer meeting and be on the road all day? You have to be grounded in your why, and that leans into the self-starter, self-motivated characteristic that I was mentioning earlier. It's really important because again, sales is one of those things, is one of those career paths where I say this all the time, and I truly believe it. The job is not hard. It's not hard to be a sales professional, but it is a grind. And so when I say that, what I mean to say is, you are not saving lives. You're not someone that is on the front lines dealing with patients in an ER, right? And it's not to devalue the importance of being a sales professional, but it's to ground you in the fact that, there are, as a sales professional, there are ebbs and flows, ups and downs. What's really important is that you understand that this job is a grind and this career is a grind. But when you maximize your output, you will in turn eventually maximize your input, which is directly related to your income. And so, your why is very important. That's what's going to keep you going, right? When you have, a bad month, right? When you're staring down the barrel of a month where you didn't achieve your quota or overachieve on your quota, and you have to figure out your action plan and what you're going to do the next month to make sure that you're adding pipeline and you're finding opportunities and you're closing deals and advancing opportunities to be, deals that you close, say, in month type of thing. It's, it can be grueling. It can be grueling, and you need to have, a belief that you're going to do whatever it takes, and your why is what grounds you. And so everybody has their own why. Everyone's is unique to them and their life, and where they are in their life at that time.
Would you like to share your why?
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Yeah, my why hasn't changed. My why has been the same since I started as a professional salesperson in a B2B space. It's kind of always been the same. In fact, I can't think far back enough, I don't think, to when I was in retail sales, but my why for anything and everything that I do is the family that I have and the family that I'm trying to build. That's it. It's that simple for me. And what that really means is, I believe in being able to take care of the family that I have. So, the family that I was born into and the people that raised me. And then the family that I'm trying to build. So with my wife and my son and beyond, and who knows if that's what happens. But, I want to be able to give everyone that I love and care about, anything and everything that they desire, right? And so that is critical for me. And one of the key pieces to that is not just financial, right? It's also having the freedom of time. And I think that's something that eventually, being financially free and earning well for a number of years affords you to do, is to be able to enjoy yourself and enjoy your time. But spending it with family is critical for me. So yeah, that's my why.
Okay. That's a good why.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
That's my opinion. Who knows? Somebody might think it's a stupid why.
Somebody might, yeah. Somebody might say, hey, I want to buy a Rolex and a Range Rover. That's great.
Yeah.
To be fair, I also want to buy those things.
So know your why. I know exactly why you need to be a self-starter, because sales in general requires that type of attitude.
Yeah.
Right? No one's going to push you to hit your quota. No one's going to spoon feed sale to you. It has to be earned.
You're not going to walk into any deals, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
You got to earn them.
Grit, obviously, because you're going to face a lot of rejection. Same thing with tenacity. You need to keep trying. Same thing with perseverance. Aptitude to learn, because obviously you're going to be more resourceful in the event you learn more and more.
Yeah.
So now, what type of individuals, I'm sure you've been here for like almost a decade, right? So what type of characteristics or what type of people do not suit this field of work?
Anybody who doesn't have those traits that you said earlier.
Sure. So if you are not a self-starter, if you lack grit, if you lack tenacity, if you are not perseverant, and you don't want to learn, sure, right? But what are some people that actually enter and you find like particular characteristics that they have that make them leave either, or they just suck?
Well, I don't want to say suck, because that's not very nice. But what I will say is, if you're the type of person that needs to be given direction constantly, chances are sales not for you, because you have to be able to be in the driver's seat. You can't always rely on someone else to guide you and handhold a little bit. And so that's where I would say is like, we see, unsuccessful sales folks where
lack independence.
Yeah, they lack the independence, they lack a bit of the drive, but they also lack ownership and accountability. So if you're not someone that if you are someone that has a hard time, being accountable and responsible for a quota, then chances are not for you, right? Or if you're someone that lacks ownership and really doesn't know how to drive things forward, then chances are you might be in sales and you'll just be wildly unsuccessful. Or you might even have some pockets of success by sheer luck, but you're not the type of person that's going to advance things forward and get deals done. And that's critical, right? When you find an opportunity and you're building pipeline, one of the most important things is qualifying the pipeline and driving deals forward. everyone says that time kills all deals, right? The longer you sit on something, chances are it's going away or it's going to another competitor of yours. So that's one that you should add to skills that you need is you got to be competitive. I think that's an important piece of it. So, that's we see that in high performers. They have a natural competitive mindset as well.
Are these OTEs unreasonable?
Absolutely not.
Like, is it like a number that's very difficult to hit?
No, absolutely not. Like I think any good organization that wants to retain their people and wants to develop their people into being better sales folks is going to give you a quota that is attainable. If they give you something that was unrealistic or unattainable, that would discourage you from day one, right? So, I think it's important for people to see.
Is this negotiable?
The OTE?
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. It depends on your experience. It's definitely something that you can kind of tackle on a as is or individual basis. But yeah, I'm sure OTEs can be challenged or negotiated for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, you're not going to do that successfully as an SDR, BDR, just because those are entry level type of roles. But once you get into the account executive or enterprise account executive or large major account executive type of roles, that's where you can kind of negotiate, depending on the skill set that you bring, the years of experience that you bring, and also who you know in the industry. Yeah. That's really important as well.
Fair enough. Great advice. Okay, so we talked about those negative characteristics. It seems like if you can't hold yourself accountable, blame a lot of external things for your failures, independence, this is not a field for you. So do you see a lot of turnover in this field? Because I'm guessing as a result of providing a salary, that prevents turnover, right? Because if you weren't good at your job, and you didn't make any money, you'd definitely leave, right? Because you got to eat somehow.
Yeah. So I think it's a good question. Attrition is something that is natural with any organization. Like people will leave, but typically what we see is that on the vendor side, we see a lot more turnover because it could be a number of things. It could just be, you don't, like the product that you're selling, or you've fallen out of love with the company itself or leadership or whatever. On the partner side, we typically see longer sales tenure, especially in the higher roles. So for an account executive or enterprise account executive, et cetera, we see longer tenure there because those are more, let's say, seasoned professionals, more mature or further along in their career that, making a decision to leave is seen as a risk.
I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm under the impression if you make it to account executive, you're probably not going to leave because you've stayed long enough to be, it's like a career path now. Unless you really hate your life or hate your job, you're probably not going to change. I'm more concerned about the SDRs and the BDRs that they start off and do you find that, let's say 100 join, there's 20 that leave? Is there turnover like that? Or do you find that people actually take the time, stick it through, learn a little bit, and move forward?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more BDRs and SDRs that want to stick it out to get to account executive. So look, tenure, in terms of attrition and people leaving, that's going to happen no matter the role, right? And again, you're not all set in account executive either. There's so many different factors to consider. It could be your leadership that you don't get along with or whatever, and that you decide to leave. From an SDR, BDR perspective, that's typically where we might see more attrition, if anything. However, I'm sure there are a good portion, and I can't give you a fact on this or a stat on this because it's just so hard to say. But typically, I would think that there are SDRs, BDRs that want to be account executives that are going to stick it out to get to the account executive level.
It doesn't sound like there's crazy turnover. And the reason why I brought this up is because when you're in a low barrier to entry, right? When sales, for instance, real estate, right? When I was talking to Anthony Howard, episode 2, he was telling me there was very high turnover because it's hard to sell a home.
Sure.
And then if you don't get any results, people need to start thinking about food.
Yeah.
Right? And so nothing that you said implied, people come and just leave based on performance very quickly, at least. So there's reasonable turnover because, every profession has that. There's so many people that enter a profession and just leave. So at least people think through entering tech sales. Or so it appears to me, at least. Like you said, you don't have a stat on this. Okay, this is a very difficult question. What is an average and normal day like for, let's say, an SDR, if you can summarize it, an account manager, an account executive? So let's start off with an SDR.
Yeah, so the average day for an SDR probably looks like you get into the office, let's say 8 a.m., 9 a.m. You're not leaving probably till 5 p.m. anyway, and you're probably hitting the phones. And we typically say smile and dial, right? Where you've got a number of leads in front of you or accounts and contacts that you're going to try and prospect and cold call into. And all you're trying to do is land a meeting where you can demo a product, right? So that's probably the typical day, Monday to Friday, right? Cold calling. I'm sure there are so many other nuances depending on the company, but that's your priority number one. Is make contact, set up an appointment, and book a demo.
Are you involved in the demo in any way, or somebody else takes that?
It's chances are that there are two people, or could be a few people, or in some cases even just the SDR delivering the demo themselves, and then to land a further qualifying meeting with the account executive. Again, that's typically more so on the vendor side, not necessarily the partner side. For an account manager, I think the day looks very similar in the sense of structure. You're in the office because it's an inside sales type of role, or you're working from home. We're obviously in a remote or hybrid work environment these days. And, you are working with your account executive counterpart or your customers on day-to-day things such as quotes and orders and software contract renewals and things like that, right? Those days are probably looking very similar Monday to Friday. As an account executive...
1 second, though, before we move forward.
Sure.
You mentioned that you work with an account executive and you work with SDRs, but what are you doing? What does an account manager do?
So in the context of a partner, like the partner that I work for, our account managers work in tandem with account executives, right? And I'll explain that a little bit further. So let me explain what a day-to-day looks like for an account executive. I'll tie it back to the account manager.
Okay.
So as an account executive, I spend I have what I call anchor days. My Mondays are in our Toronto office. I spend the day here from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I'm here working with other team members and team meetings. I work with other sales leaders in our team meetings as well. And that is really a day for one-on-ones and having some of the internal discussions. We typically also have what we call like a lunch and learn, where we have a vendor come in and present to us and teach us about their solution that they want us to position to our customers while they provide us lunch as well. So that's my Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm typically on the road. So what that means is I am in the car, literally, on the road, and I'm visiting clients at their sites, right? So at their office, and I'm meeting with them either about something strategic that we're working on, I'm delivering a quarterly business review, or I'm taking them through, a renewal review where we've got some substantial contract renewals that are coming up that we need to review and get ahead of. Or we're having a strategic meeting about a specific project where I'm bringing along a resource like an architect or a complex solutions lead, or, in some cases, folks would bring like a sales engineer, et cetera, right? To either qualify, advance, or close an opportunity that we're working on. And then my Fridays are typically my day to work from home, where I am doing some admin around task cleanup. I'm cleaning out my CRM, which, I use Salesforce, and I am, making sure that I'm adding pipeline, I'm logging appointments, logging calls, I'm doing my expenses, things like that. So Fridays are typically call them admin days. So my Monday is my office day. Friday is my admin work from home day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm on the road a lot, putting on miles in the car for sure. Now,
and so you said you were going to tie it back to the account manager.
So because I'm spending so much time on the road, I'm lucky enough that as an outside sales representative or account executive, I am paired with an account manager, and we share the same customer, right? So I have multiple customers. My account manager has the same customers, right? And what my account manager is responsible for is some of the day-to-day transactional business, where that might be quotes that we have to produce for, laptops, desktops, Could be something more complicated like a data center or software that the customer is looking to buy. So transactional stuff to keep the business running while I'm having the strategic conversations around transforming the business. They're responsible for renewal tracking, where they are making sure that any renewals that are coming up for considerable software spend, for example, let's say they have their Veeam backup software coming up for renewal in August, right? We got to make sure that the customer has seen the first iteration of the quote, doesn't have any changes, or if they need to have a call with ourselves and the vendor partner, in this example, I mentioned Veeam, if they needed to get together, then we can arrange that call. The account manager is responsible for that, right? The existing business. While I am meeting with a subset of other customers, or the same customers, on other projects, right? So it's this kind of divide and conquer mentality where they keep the business running, we find the new business.
Okay, so how does the commission work with that then? I mean, you guys, so your account manager relies heavily on you to succeed then?
Absolutely. We rely on each other to succeed. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, cool. You really got to love that person. Cool. You're like a caddy.
What's
right?
that?
You're like a caddy.
Not a caddy.
The account manager is like a caddy.
No? I wouldn't say they're a caddy.
No?
Even though account executives, we like to golf and we do get out to the course quite a bit with our customers during the summer only. Yeah, I wouldn't say our account managers are like a caddy. I would say, they're a critical part of the team for sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
So is a caddy.
So is a caddy. I feel like caddy can have some bit of a, not a negative connotation, but a lesser than connotation.
Oh my goodness, no.
Maybe this is a part that you edit out.
Okay. So average normal day for tech sales, an SDR or BDR is hitting the phone and trying to set up demos. An account manager has a lot of insight into that account. And so they will let you know what's coming up for renewal or what new things we need to focus on and blah, blah, blah. And the account executive is on the road strategizing, right, with the customers directly.
Yeah.
Right. And you broke it down into day by day, which is very detailed. I appreciate that. So now within these same roles, what's the stress level like? And, and summarily, can you take me through SDR, account manager, and account executive? What aggravates it and, what alleviates or lessens the stress?
Yeah, so for SDRs and account managers and account executives, for anybody in tech sales, if you're carrying a bag, which means if you have a quota and you're responsible and accountable to that quota, that is your stressor, right? That's what you're thinking about all the time is how do I get the bag and how do I make sure that it is well taken care of? It's really important, right? Now, I would say, let me start with how do you alleviate the stress? As an account executive, you alleviate the stress by meeting with your customers and adding, I would say, 3x pipeline. That's like the classic sales requirement for, if you want to be successful, you take a look at your quota for the year, you break it down by month, you can break it down by week and say, each week, I need to bring in, if your quota for the week in terms of, if your pipeline goal for the week is $10,000, that's already representative of 3x of what your quota is, right? So, yeah, it's one of those things where you have to really break it down. You have to break down your quota, really understand what you need to do from a pipeline generation perspective, and then work on the activities that help you find pipeline. Is that clear? Or should I explain that a little bit further?
I get that.
Okay. That's how you alleviate the stress. You have to have really high activity and a strong pipeline if you want to go into a month or a quarter or a year not feeling stressed out. But I would say what aggravates the stress or what adds to the stress is just when things don't go your way, right? Like I think that's number one, right? That is like, you put a lot of time and effort into a deal and the deal doesn't close or the deal gets killed because of another priority on the customer side that takes precedence, or there could be a number of things, right? Like you lose the deal. You could lose the deal to a competitor. That's what really boils a lot of people's blood is when you realize that, hey, I lost this to a competitor. Then you do your loss review. You figure, okay, why did I lose it? Why did they win it? What were the reasons?
Be better.
Yeah. Well, that's number one, right? And then you internalize all of that and you just get crazy. You want to rip your hair out and you say, yeah, I need to be better. But yeah, I think there's a number of things that could aggravate the stress. I mean, at an account executive level, it's understanding your competitive landscape when it relates to a specific opportunity, right? So for example, if you're doing a data, you're working with a customer on refreshing their on-premise data center, and so they need to order new servers and storage and networking gear to do that, right? What would add to your stress is understanding, that, hey, this is now a competitive deal. I'm not the only one in there talking to them about this. I'm not the only partner. There are other partners also talking to them about this, and also positioning other solutions that now I have to compete with. That adds to the stress. But I'll be honest, once you understand your competitive landscape, you also have a lot of opportunity to position yourself against that competitor or the competitors to differentiate yourself. And that's where you have an opportunity. So, any challenge I think presents an opportunity. But yeah, I think that is that, like, there's different ways to look at it. That can make you feel like, oh my goodness, this most stressful situation, now I'm competing. Or you could say, okay, I'm competing. Maybe I know who I'm competing against, or maybe I don't. But if I know I'm competing, then I'm going to approach this totally differently. Or I'm going to approach it from a more pragmatic lens. Or I'm going to bring in more people to support it. Or I'm going to work on executive alignment. I'm going to get my VP of sales to talk to the CIO or whatever it is, right? There are ways to approach that for sure. And I like to look at it as that's not something that creates stress for me. It helps me understand what I need to do to win the deal.
So now you're seasoned, right? So in the beginning, I'm sure you got stressed, right? Do you still get stressed, do you feel? Like, is the profession stressful?
I would say sales can be stressful for sure. The profession is stressful, as any profession is, but it's what you do to alleviate or address that stress. And so, like I mentioned, right, there are certain things that you can do to alleviate the stress around your quota, which is being super active, talking to your customers, and building a pipeline, right? There are things that you can do to address stress around specific opportunities, which is, again, from my perspective, is understanding your competitive landscape, if any, but also who the key stakeholders are in the specific deal. Who needs to approve it? Is there budget allocated for it? What's the timeline? Are you forecasting it properly? Like, these are all really important things, right? And so, the job definitely can be stressful. And to what I said earlier, right? The job is not hard, but it is a grind, right? And so it does require you to be, I would say, level-headed, and you need to be someone who is steady, right? Don't celebrate the wins all the time, and don't dwell on the lows, right? You got to be right in the middle, and you got to be on point as it relates to just, the next month, the next quarter. You got to look ahead, right? Because even if you have, one deal could slip, and it could feel like the world is crumbling, or the weight of the world is on your shoulders. But it's how you approach that stress. I think that's the most important thing. But yeah, like any job is stressful, right? Any profession is going to be stressful. It's all dependent on how you approach it.
Yeah, it's result-oriented stress.
Absolutely. I mean, it's your results directly impact your pockets, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. After a few weeks or months as an SDR, does the job get redundant?
Sure.
Makes sense. Cold calling.
What
about for an account manager?
It could, but account managers are typically involved in some more customer-facing conversation because they already have customers that are buying, right? And SDRs are trying to sell, right? Account managers are managing accounts.
Yeah.
Account managers.
Procured accounts.
Accounts that are already spending with you.
Yeah.
And so you're already having conversations with them, right? So, it could be maybe you're having more creative conversations.
Account executive.
Yeah, account executives.
Is there redundancy?
There can be for sure, but I would say it's very, very, redundancy is very rare.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Because you're strategizing, right? So every company has different goals.
Every company has different goals. Where it becomes redundant is maybe some of your day-to-day, like, hey, I got to hit the road. That stuff can get redundant. But honestly, I'm a man who loves routine and loves, you can call them certain rituals.
Yeah.
But, for me, it's when I leave the house in the morning and I'm getting in the car, I know that I'm about to hit Google Maps. I'm going to turn my music on. And for 45 minutes, typically that's what it takes for me to get to any client of mine. For 45 minutes, I'm on the road, I'm focused, I'm thinking about my day. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about my goals. I'm just in the zone. I'm getting in the zone. Or in some cases, I'm taking a call while I'm in the car. But, you know, those little things are so, you can be ritualistic for me, or, you know, just kind of key emotions. And so, yeah, there's parts of it that are redundant, but it's very rare that every day is the same. There's going to be some type of new challenge, and it could be a challenge, it could be a concern, it could be an issue, right? It could be something is blowing up with, you know, recently there was a huge outage with CrowdStrike and Microsoft, and so we had customers calling our cell phones all day saying, "Hey, we need help." And so we had, you know, and that's you know, there's these blips that happen, but yeah, you know, it's no day is the same, but there are definitely redundant kind of tasks, call it. Yeah.
Fair enough. But it sounds like as you progress through the tech sales career ladder, less and less of the jobs remain redundant.
Absolutely.
So it's only SDR technically actually that feels that way.
Yeah.
And account manager gets a little bit less, and then with account executive less, director of sales less, and so forth.
Sure.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll just ask it anyways. You need to work within a team structure, correct?
Yeah.
That's a leading question. But it seems like the SDRs work with sales engineers and solutions architects, you know, facilitate a sale. Then account managers there's a liaison within the SDRs and the account executive. And then your role, account executive, seems less team oriented, or?
No, it's very team oriented.
Okay.
So yeah, as I mentioned, as an account executive with the partner that I work with, I am directly working with an account manager to keep the transactional renewal business going. I also directly work with and heavily rely on solutions architects, technical architects, complex solutions leads, and so many other parts of our business from a technical perspective to make sure that we're addressing the customer business goal through technology. Yeah, that. Fully believe that you can't do this job alone. Okay. Again, I'm never the smartest person in the room, and that's something that I know, very well aware of, and lean into for sure, because I understand what my strengths are, and again, my strength and my expertise is understanding the customer at a very intimate level and building a strong relationship with the customer to either find new opportunity or advance opportunity.
Okay, and you mentioned that you work in a remote setting. However, you're on the road, so you're meeting the clients.
Yeah.
SDRs do you find that in industry, it's been multiple years since COVID now, are they back in the office? Or are they cold calling from home?
Everybody's different. Every company is different. You know, there's I would say it's probably a hybrid more and more. You know,
3 day in, 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days in, 3 days working from home, or the other way around. It really depends.
Company to company.
Yeah, I mean, it's so dependent on the culture of the company. I mean, I can tell you that the company that I work for and the partner that I'm with is, you know, one of the best that you could work for. We fully embrace working your way and hybrid work and what that really means, right? Like, let's face it, the pandemic has changed the way we work and the way our customers work, right? Our customers are not in the office 5 days a week. At least I can speak for myself when I say that the customers that I work with, they're there maybe 3, 4, but not 5. And, you know, everybody's different. But SDRs are typically, I would say, if anything, their job was actually easier to do when you had to go and work from home because they were already kind of behind a computer working, you know, on making cold calls. So that was a bit of an easier transition. It was harder for the account executives that were looking to be in front of their customers and really drive and find new opportunity. To do that remotely, it can be a little bit more difficult because let's face it, you know, face-to-face conversation like we're doing right now is way more natural. You build a lot better rapport this way, right?
Yeah.
You get to learn about body language and what's important and what makes the customer tick and what things they probably don't like. And it just becomes a little bit more, let's say, informal, right? When you get to meet someone face-to-face, you're kind of removing that barrier of like, hey, we got to talk behind a screen. Now we're saying, hey, we're face to face, right? Like if there are concerns, we can address them, right, together. But also let's get to know each other, right, on a personal level, and that goes back to the relationship building, right? So
okay, so it seems like it's pretty hybrid.
Generally, yeah.
In a week, how many hours do do SDRs work? You said they come in at 9, go in at 5, so it seems
They're
like a
doing 40
regular
hours.
40.
Yeah,
Does it change for account managers?
not typically.
Okay. Account executives?
It can. Yeah, for sure.
It's more or less.
I would say it's more.
Oh,
I would say you're working more hours because the reality is that the stakes are higher, right? As an account executive, you own the account. You own the account strategy. You are the key contact for the customer, right? They're not going to call an SDR. They're not going to call an account manager typically. They're going to call the account executive and they're going to say, hey, I need help, or hey, something is wrong.
so during the CrowdStrike stuff, you were getting lots of calls?
Yeah, we got some calls for sure, definitely. And again, it's typically the account executive that receives that call. So yes, you're typically going to work more.
Tell me what more is.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I probably put in anywhere between 50 to 60 hours a week, but that can vary. Some weeks it's just the 40, right? Like it really kind of depends on the day, the week. It also depends on where you are in relation to your quota, right? So if you're falling behind a bit, you got to pick it up and you got to put a little bit more in. And maybe you're trying to get creative on solutioning things or trying to advance deals or get creative around deals to get them done, right? So it really kind of depends, right? There are some critical times of year. There's like the first half of the year, you want to make sure, we're on a calendar year or a calendar fiscal. And so what that means is like June is really important for us because that's the first half of the year. And then also December is really important for us because that's the end of our year. And so we want to make sure that all our business is taken care of and we're all achieving quota, et cetera. So there are certain parts of certain times, excuse me, of the year where it's important for you to put more in. But again, as you put more in, you get more, right? You can possibly earn more, right? Because it's uncapped commissions. So it's all up to you. I mean, you are the master of your own destiny, I think, when you're in sales. And as an account executive, it's really up to you to figure out, how you want to approach your work life and your personal life.
Do you feel like you have work-life balance?
I think I do. Yeah. Because again, as an account executive, I have more autonomy over, like I'm not Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not driving to a single office and staying there all day. I'm going from site to site, and if I need to work in a personal appointment in that day, I can, right? It might mean that I just work, an extra hour or two in the evening or something like that, right? And so, look, everyone's different and everyone approaches their work differently. But I do what works for me, which is typically, I want to get as much as I can done in the typical work day. But if I got to put some extra hours in the evening, it's totally fine.
Fair enough. So you've been in this field for a while. What do you like about tech sales? The field.
The field is fun. So, I mean, nothing happens without a touch of technology these days. Can't go anywhere without some type of tech. What I've learned is that technology is it's changing so fast. I love the speed of change. The environment is so fast paced and there are so many things happening all at once. And technology is critical to our global infrastructure. So, I think it's a lot of fun to be involved with something that is so sprawling and so critical and so innovative. Like what we've been talking about for the last year around AI is so cool. There are elements of it that some people will say, oh, it's dangerous or it's scary and all that. But I try to look at it more from an optimistic lens and say, like, what is this going to help us do? Like, we'll be able to, get more out of, our workforce, or we'll be able to just do things way faster. And so, yeah, I think there's, I love being part of technology because it's just so fast paced.
Fair enough. What do you dislike about this field, if anything?
That's a tough question. I don't know that I dislike anything really, because I truly enjoy selling. I love being a sales professional and I do love technology. If anything, I could say that's not a dislike, but perhaps a distraction could be, is that there's something new all the time. And so to the point of being, fast-paced change, what can sometimes be a distraction is the new shiny object where, the tech trend is, let's say it's, the the next big cybersecurity vendor is coming out with something that is going to be completely world changing. And then that becomes something that we talk about for 3 months, and then it kind of goes away or fizzles out. So yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it can be, you have to juggle the distractions or what is really going to be important and impactful for our customers and really for the industry and beyond that globally. And again, no hate on any cybersecurity vendors. I was just using that as an example. Yeah, I think maybe there can be times where things can get a little distracting, but otherwise, you really kind of lean in. If you lean into like the fast-paced environment and wanting to learn, then it can be a lot of fun.
You don't dislike anything, eh?
Not really, no.
Sounds like a good field if you like sales. Because, I hear a lot of disdain from other people about their own professions, right? And so it's cool to hear, especially because you've been in the field for a while, that you don't dislike many things. Because, some people would hate the commission structure or things of that nature. But I guess it's how you incentivize a higher level of sales, right? So,
yeah, I mean, someone who's working for maybe a different partner or a different vendor might have a different experience, right?
Yeah,
and so I'm very fortunate. I really do enjoy the company that I work for. I really love what I do. I truly do, because it's a lot of fun. You get to meet clients face to face. In some cases, you're doing some of the wining and dining, where you get to go to nice restaurants or you go to a golf course or whatever it is. That's customer appreciation and taking care of your customer, which is really important. It's an important part of the job.
Sounds like fun too.
It is fun. Yeah, it is definitely fun.
Especially for somebody social.
we just played at the 25th annual golf tournament on Tuesday, and that was a lot of fun.
Shoot.
Listen, man, it was best ball scramble type of event. So we're not going to get into the numbers and specifics, but it was a great day.
We have a high handicapper here. Now that you have almost a decade of experience, what advice would you give to Kashif when he was getting into tech sales?
The advice that I would give myself 10 years ago or 8.5 years ago is be patient with yourself. Set and manage your expectations accordingly, and know that this is a lot to learn, and there is always going to be a lot to learn. So just be patient with yourself as it relates to the technology, because I'll be honest, when I first started, I was anxious. There was definitely some anxiety around, I don't know a lot. So I spent a lot of time doing deep learning. And sure, it helped me, but I think to some degree, there were moments early on in my career where I felt maybe a little bit burnt out, just because I was just spending so much time trying to be an expert in something that I was just learning. So I would say just be patient. Yeah, for sure.
I feel like that advice is interesting, because don't you need that? Like, don't you think you succeeded because you were eager?
Yeah, so everyone says that like a good salesperson is a little bit impatient because they want to advance things and get things done. Yeah, there's an element of truth to that, for sure, absolutely, because and impatient is the wrong word to use, but that's typically what people will say. You got to be driven, right? That's the differentiator, I think, is like, my drive was not necessarily the reason for my burnout early on. It was more so the fact that I just took on way too much all at once, right? Instead, if I utilized my drive the right way, it would have been that I, took things part and parcel, and then also I tried to learn the more important pieces first, right? And so, yeah, I would say it's I can understand where that becomes kind of maybe blurred, or why that would be seen as interesting in terms of response. But yeah, no,
I'm picking on it because why is it that all the successful people say that, right? And
all
it's
successful people say what? That they have to be patient?
Yeah, that they need to be patient, or they would have been a little bit nicer to themselves, or they would have done something to prevent burnout. But what I hear, because I do a lot of the interviewing, is those are the people that succeeded, right? So maybe we need to change the rhetoric and go back to the grindhouse and just be like, hey, you do need to grind. You do need, like, a few years need to suck it up.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, right? The job is not hard, but it is a grind. But there's an element of being kind to yourself as well, right? For your own mental health, for your own development and growth as well. Sometimes Sometimes I do think, hey, did I move out of the inside sales role too quickly into management? I wouldn't change anything, by the way. I have no regrets. But I have thought about that. To say like, hey, like was that the right move at that time? Should I have spent more time being an inside sales account manager? Would I have learned some type of skill or further developed a skill that I could utilize today? But frankly, I wouldn't change anything. So maybe that's what it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So you've seen my podcast before, so you know I close all my interviews off by asking these two questions.
Yeah.
What is the best career advice that you have ever received?
The best career advice that I have ever received, for me, it was someone mentioned, is a good friend of mine based in Dallas, Texas now, but was in Toronto at the time. He mentioned to me that if you want to do well, focus on PI. And PI is performance, image, and exposure. So if you focus on these three things, you will in turn build a strong brand that will enable you to, essentially carry yourself a little bit differently, but also you command and demand respect. You can command a room, and also it'll paint you in the right, in the right way. So performance being, focus on your performance. You got to do well. You got to do well if you want to, you got to perform well if you want to do well. Image was how you carry yourself, right? In terms of, people say dress to impress or dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have. That's a key part of image. And so that also means, early bird gets the worm. Like I can throw out all the different types of phrases that you hear, right? But that's all very true. Like being the first one in, especially when you're in the grindhouse, when you're putting the first couple of years in, when, maybe you're being impatient with yourself. Putting in time, getting in early, being the first one in, last one out type of thing. Like that part of your brand, it could help in some cases. I would never advocate for people to burn themselves out, but in some cases it does help your brand when you are just getting started. And then exposure is really kind of leveraging your performance and your image and the brand that you're starting to build to expose yourself to different leaders and different parts of the business. And go cross-functional. Don't always just stay in sales. Get to know people in different departments, right? And build a brand that is unshakable.
That's some good career advice.
Yeah.
Now, over the course of your life, I'm sure you've received some bad advice. So what is the worst career advice you have ever received?
This was an advice that I really took to heart anyway, but some of the worst career advice I received is that you can bounce around and make more money, which, there's truth to it. And so people do like to do 2 years here and there with so many different companies and things like that because they're chasing what might be a higher OTE. But I personally believe that kind of in the marketplace, in the community, in the in Toronto, our tech sales community, as large as tech is from an industry perspective, specific to where I call my backyard or call my home, in Toronto, the tech sales community is so small. A lot of people know each other. Everyone knows each other. And so do our clients and all your vendors, all your partners, and everyone that you work with. It's very... you rub shoulders with a lot of people, right? Rub elbows or bump shoulders, whatever it is. You meet a lot of people, a lot of the same people. And if you hear people move around, it's like, okay, this person will never stay at the same company. So I don't necessarily want to work with them or spend time, learning about their technology or their offering, because I just don't know that if I'm going to be buying something that is going to be a waste of time, or if I invest dollars here, I want to know that I have the same person to talk to for a number of years. So that's some of the worst career advice that I received is like, hey, bounce around if you want to make more. In fact, I would say that I've been more successful because I've stayed here longer, right? I've built a significant amount of friendships, but also really great connections and expanded my network across, different vendors that I work with, different customers that I work with. And I think that has in turn helped my brand. So when people think about, me, they think, oh, this individual has been here a long time. They're knowledgeable, they're reliable, they're trusted, right? So that kind of, I would say bouncing around goes against what I believe in terms of building a strong brand.
Fair enough. Well, this was awesome, Kashif. I learned a lot about tech sales. It was very different than what I initially envisaged. So thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. I hope you had a good time too.
Yeah, I did. Look, I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. I know we're doing this not in your typical setup, so I appreciate you bringing the elaborate setup here. And yeah, again, thanks so much for having me. I hope whoever listens to this takes something away from it. So thank
I
you.
hope so too. I definitely learned a lot.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too.
Well, that's it for this episode of the My Career Shop podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a better idea of how to become a tech sales professional and what to expect once you enter this field. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and comment on what profession you want me to invite next and what other information you would be interested in hearing. See you soon.